supply a large number of troops, because the very road routes, the routes by which their supplies would be hauled to feed these troops in Lookout Valley, pass within easy range of those guns over the tip of Lookout Mountain. And the Confederate troops who are stationed here rely upon what little can come over Lookout Mountain, and they forage widely in this valley. And soon, Lookout Valley, for miles within reach, is stripped of everything edible. Everything edible, not only for the soldiers themselves, but for the animals of those Confederate troops, their horses and mules. Soon, even the citizens who remain in this part of the valley are going to have a hard time getting by. Everything is simply eaten up by even that small number of Confederate troops. You know, just think about it. When we go to the grocery store, how much stuff we bring home for a number of days. And now think about this for a larger number of people on a larger scale. And you also have to factor in that most of these soldiers are 18 to 25 years of age, and so what are they looking for? They're trying to get into all kinds of trouble, even though their officers are trying hard to keep them busy. But literally, they were like a plague of locusts on this part of Lookout Valley. With the Union situation in Chattanooga becoming worse, one of the things the Union Army must do is open a new supply line into Chattanooga. What they must do is reopen their supply line along the Tennessee River, or on the south side of the Tennessee River. That was clearly obvious from the very beginning, from the moment they even anticipated losing the northern tip of Lookout Mountain. And throughout late September and into October, Union officers, including William Stark Rosecrans in Chattanooga, began to make plans. In fact, 155 years ago, this 4th day of October, if you had asked William Stark Rosecrans, he would have told you that he hoped maybe as early as the 7th of October, he could launch an attack across the Tennessee River to seize the northern end of Lookout Valley. Now that doesn't happen, mainly because there aren't yet all of the pieces in place to make that happen, but he understood the urgency with which the Union Army must again come to possess the northern end of Lookout Valley. A Confederate raid into the Sequatchie Valley against the wagon train line will delay their efforts a little bit. So will some of that rain. As each day passed, Rosecrans' tenure in command grew less and less. And on the 19th day of October, he received a message that he is relieved. The overall Union command in the area between the Appalachian Mountains and the Mississippi River has changed. Ulysses S. Grant, the victor of Fort Donelson and Shiloh and Vicksburg, has been elevated to command of all Union troops from the Appalachian Mountains to the Mississippi River. And he's been told to come to Chattanooga. And since he is in overall command now in the West, and he doesn't like William Stark Rosecrans, Rosecrans is relieved, and 14th Corps Commander George Thomas, the Virginian, who remained loyal to the United States, is elevated to command of the Army of the Cumberland. And when Grant telegraphed when Grant telegraphed Thomas to hold on, that Grant was on his way, Thomas responded that he would hold Chattanooga until they starved. Grant will arrive by that circuitous 60 to 70 mile route on October the 23rd. Along the way, he begins to learn of the plan that is being developed to re-seize the northern end of Lookout Valley for the Union Army. The Union Army had taken notice of the fact that their artillery on Moccasin Bend reduced the number of Confederate troops in Lookout Valley. But the number of Confederate troops guarding the Tennessee River from Lookout Mountain downstream into the Tennessee River Gorge was very few. In fact, it was getting less as each day went by. They decided to take advantage of that. And the the Tennessee River, now rising because of the recent rains and because of the boats or floating military bridges that the engineers are building in the city of Chattanooga. They decide on a breakout and break-in, where Union reinforcements that have been brought by rail 1,200 miles from Virginia out to Stevenson and Bridgeport, Alabama, where they will march in along the line of the railroad from Bridgeport to Lookout Valley. They will be the break-in force. But the breakout force will take advantage of the river, darkness, and the pontoon boats being constructed in Chattanooga. There, it is decided that they will have an amphibious assault force. And noting the old ferry, then, by the time of the Civil War, largely unused across the Tennessee River at Brown's Ferry, what had earlier been one of the most vital ferries across the Tennessee River in this region, a ferry that had been a key part of the western expansion of the United States in the early 1800s, a route used so extensively that a Cherokee businessman by the name of John Brown built a travel services center, as we could think of it today, right here astride the intersection of the road from his ferry over the river to the old federal road, the main route across the Cherokee Nation, which ran right through the valley here. Of course, I'm talking about Brown's Tavern, but it wasn't just the tavern. It was a whole set of services, essentially for those who were passing along these roads. Sometimes I think, instead of a big pilot or flying J sign, we could have a big Brown sign up there. But that's essentially what it was. But that ferry, by the time of the Civil War, was largely unused. But it was still possible to pass it. And what the Union Army recognized was with very few Confederate troops at Brown's Ferry, they had a chance of conducting an amphibious assault. Now you can turn your map over to the other side where we zoom in a little bit on the northern end of Lookout Valley and Brown's Ferry. In the early morning hours of October the 27th, a 1,400-man Union assault force under William B. Hazen is put into 50 pontoon boats and 2 flatboats, and they float down the Tennessee River on the current, right past Confederate pickets on this side on this bank of the Tennessee River, and just before dawn, they land at Brown's Ferry and capture it from the one Confederate soldier on duty at Brown's Ferry. Now, there are 6 others there, but they're comfortably asleep in the ferry keeper's cabin. This 1,400-man flotilla actually splitting into 2 contingents, half of it landing right at Brown's Ferry itself, at the end of Brown's Ferry Road there, and the other landing at a notch just upstream, a less pronounced notch in the ridge line there. Those Union troops quickly seized the hilltops along that ridge line at Brown's Ferry. They advance a little ways inshore and then fortify an area. At the same time, the Union troops, who are the break-in force, are marching from Bridgeport to Stevenson, from Bridgeport towards Lookout Valley. But what have I said it's been doing for the last number of days? Raining. And it was remarked that we might have too many transportation and acronyms to keep up with today. They were in need of at least a few of them then, because the dirt roads at the time did not stand up well to all of the rain, and then the troops marching on them. It literally takes a day longer to make the march from Bridgeport to Lookout Valley than they originally planned. So the Union troops, who were supposed to march in from the west, from Bridgeport, do not arrive on October the 27th as the plan originally was, but it is the next day, October the 28th, when that morning, the head of that Union column comes marching out of Running Water Creek Gap and into Lookout Valley and starts marching down the valley, or south, or excuse me, north in the valley towards Browns Ferry. This will catch the Confederates by surprise, because as important as this part of Lookout Valley is to the Confederate attempt at strangulation of the Union Army in Chattanooga, they've had too few troops here. They haven't even been guarding the area to the west very well at all. And the arrival of these Union troops under a Union commander by the name of Joseph Hooker, troops of the 11th and 12th Corps of the Army of the Potomac, men who fought at Gettysburg just 3 months ago, they arrive in Lookout Valley and link up with the Union troops who had seized Browns Ferry the day before. There are 3 divisions of those troops, a force of about 10,000 men at that particular time. About 8,000 of those troops march up the valley here almost to Browns Ferry and camp, some of them right around the Brown Tavern home, then the home of another Fryer family. James Fryer's family lived in the Brown Tavern at the time. The camp there, but one small contingent of that Union force, 2,200 men, camp for the night around Walhatchee Junction. That's as far as they got when darkness caught them on the muddy roads. That small division, under the Pennsylvanian John White Gary, had been tasked with shepherding the wagon train along. As far as they got was Walhatchee. They go into camp, anticipating that the Confederates might strike at them. They did put out a sufficient line of pickets or skirmishers or guards in advance. And indeed, that morning, in the pre-dawn hours of October the 29th, those pickets detect a Confederate advance. The Confederates had seen, Confederates on Lookout Mountain had seen the Union troops camp around Walhatchee Junction. And if you look on that map, you can see down a little bit to the right of center. You can see the symbol for the battle there. The Confederates have decided to strike at that force. They send troops over Lookout Mountain onto the hills here along Browns Ferry Road, overlooking where we are now, while a brigade of South Carolinians advance and move southward through the neighborhood here along Astor Avenue, moving south along the Walhatchee Pike on the right-hand side of it to strike at the Union troops around Walhatchee Junction. But because the Union Army, those Union troops had done a good job of being alert, they are not caught off guard. They deploy at right angles to the Walhatchee Pike on the Roden family farm. And when the South Carolinians come charging through the open woods and then across the drainage that has flooded so badly for so many years here in Lookout Valley, and then out into the Roden family cornfield where the chemical plant is today, those New Yorkers and Pennsylvanians catch the South Carolinians in a heavy volume of fire. It will be a costly engagement, particularly for the South Carolinians, but one that was characterized by occurring almost entirely in the dark. And before dawn comes, Union troops who have reached Browns Ferry the night before come back down the valley here, drive Confederates off of hills that become known as Tyndale and Smith's Hills, and send a rescue force down to Walhatchee. The South Carolinians have to retreat back onto Lookout Mountain itself. And with the Union Army firmly in control of this part of Lookout Valley, they then control the road to Kelly's Ferry, and there small steamboats can begin begin to deliver the food that is needed for the Union Army in Chattanooga, landing at Kelly's Ferry from Bridgeport, and then just 7 miles by wagon by the Kelly's Ferry Road, through Lookout Mountain, to the pontoon bridge across the Tennessee River at Browns Ferry, and into Chattanooga. And this seizure of this part of Lookout Mountain will bring the siege of Chattanooga to an end. And 3 weeks later, the Union Army will attack and drive the Confederates from Lookout Mountain and Missionary Ridge. You all live astride the key point in this siege.
Thank you, Jim, for that very historical information. Some of it I've actually forgotten about. Before I hand the mic over to President Ray, I just want to invite all of you back here this coming Tuesday at 5:30. Local historian or Edmonton County historical committee chairman Linda Mines is bringing in the Tennessee Historical Commission or historical person, and this is brought to you by the Neighborhood Association and the Chief John Ross Daughters of the American Revolution. We're going to have a discussion on the significance of Browns Ferry Tavern next Tuesday at 5:30 right here. And here's the President.
Thank you, Alex. Jim, thank you so very much. It's very informative. A couple of questions. Did Abraham Lincoln ever come to Chattanooga? Yes, we had the Confederate Railroad and the Union Railroad stations here in Chattanooga. Of course, the Confederate was